I'm very good, thank you. I've got a little bit of a, if I sound a bit different, I've got a little bit of a cold, but I think it was just all the air con when we were at Learning Technologies, both in the
Uh,
Excel Center and also in the hotel. But, I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
you're getting there. Well, Leslie's with www.learnappeal.com, and you'll find out that our guest today, Wesley Atkinson, is also helpful with that project. It's a great project. Learn more about it by going to the website. All right, let's start. And we are back, and joining us today in that center position of power, we've got Wes Atkinson. He is co-founder of Appitierre, a very good friend of Leslie's, and he has some great products to talk about today and share with us. How are you today, Wes?
I'm really well. How are you?
I'm doing great, and it was a pleasure seeing you at the show in London a couple of weeks ago. It seems like forever ago, and yet it seems like yesterday. So we had a great time seeing you and noticing that your booth was very busy, and you guys were having a good time. So it was good to see all that, and Leslie, of course, was there at the show as well. That was Learning Technologies 2019. It was a very fun show. A lot of people. I'll tell you, I don't know how you guys get through 13,500 people all in the aisles at the same time. That was crowded.
Yeah,
It
yes,
was, it
it's a
was
lot
busy.
of talking. I always have to give my voice a break on the Friday.
Yeah, I can imagine. It was busy, but it was fun. It was fun watching the crowds and watching all the demos and stuff. So, Wes, tell us a little bit about Appitierre, when it was founded, and what you do.
Yeah, oh, thank you, Rick. So, Appitierre is a company that we started in August 2014, and we didn't really get our first client until around November 2014. And the way that we worked is we set out to create something a bit different than everyone else, and not just different in terms of software, because there are software packages that are different all the time, but from the ethos of we approached the market in that learning was too expensive. So creating electronic learning for use, regardless if you're a corporate, loads of money or education, we just felt was too expensive. I mean, if you looked at a website and those easy to use creators of websites such as WordPress and things like that, you can get them for free. But in the e-learning space, you want to do a similar thing and you've got to pay $20,000. So while there were those tools that you could use, and there's plenty of them there to create e-learning, they didn't really look like the rest of the web. So the point for us was to create something that looked like the rest of the web, because e-learning is done in a browser, and make it affordable for everyone. So we created two products. The first was Evolve Authoring. That's a content authoring tool where you create e-learning, and then Bloom LMS, which is obviously LMS where you can store your e-learning and people can access it and see what you've built, and obviously use it for all their different purposes. And one of the first things people then ask me is, why did you create an LMS? There's north of 800 of those globally. And so again, tried to do something a little bit different. We don't try and do anything fancy in the LMS. We make it work on every device. We go for accessibility, so striving towards 2.0 on WCAG 2.0 for Bloom LMS. We're completely compliant on Evolve and Evolve content, and so mobile ready, any device. And we like the strapline for Bloom is it's an LMS. It's the 10% of the LMS that you actually use, because if you think about all the features in an LMS, you're paying for 100%, and often, roughly, you're using between 10 and 12% of that LMS. So, and that's across typical organisations that we surveyed. So we focus on that 10%, actually getting the content to your learners in as few steps as possible.
Well, it's interesting because lately, and this is good news for you, we've been asked by a lot of people, what about Bloom? And at first, we thought we go, Bloom. we hadn't heard of Bloom that much. And then I realized your company, I'd found it. I went, wait a minute, Bloom is from Wes's company. Oh, gosh. I didn't know that. But people have been asking us lately about Bloom. So I did notice at the conference that Bloom was was developed by you folks. And so we started paying attention all of a sudden. I go, Bloom, oh, okay, that's good to know. And you're right, there is a definite market for an LMS that just does what people need rather than a billion other things, which can be very, very expensive. The average LMS today costs more than the distribution, manufacturing, financial software that people run their companies with, which doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on that a little bit, the whole ethos of Bloom and the creation of it was something that we looked at very carefully, because if you think about the model in Bloom, it's often, or any LMS I should say rather than Bloom, is typically you're paying per learner. We do the model where it's unlimited learners. And we've seen companies try and do that in the past and fail. And the reason they fail is because there is actually normally when you log people in, it's a significant wait, and the more people you log in, the more hardware you need to support it, and your cost rises. So that's often why the price point of per learner is brought in. But we engineered Bloom in such a way that it uses the power of your browser to do the heavy lifting. So that's why we use it and contributed it back to the Learn Appeal capsule, so that they can use a Raspberry Pi, a very low powered device, and have up to 200 plus learners accessing an LMS on such a small device.
Yeah.
So that was really and even today, when we're being used in some of the biggest organizations in the world with Bloom, we still make sure it works on the capsule.
That's good.
That is the one thing that I have to. I mean, I've known Wes and the other co-founder Daryl almost literally since they started off in business, and I gave them the biggest wish list you could ever have imagined. And I consulted with the top people in the industry, both on what you were looking for from an LMS and an authoring tool, but also on the power side. So can it do this? Can it do that? And these guys just, they said, yeah, we can do it. And they did it. And what is the most wonderful thing to me is that every single change they make to the authoring tool and to the learning management system, it still works on the Learn Appeal capsule. So they said from the very beginning, we never want people who are offline to be regarded as, in inverted commas, second-class citizens. And that's something I really have to take my hat off to them for. It's what they've done is, but not only that, when you're actually doing their stuff, Wes just mentioned something there about accessibility. And following the Learning Technologies Conference, I actually had somebody contact me who said, I want to help you, I'm a volunteer, I want to support you, but I need to ensure that everything you are doing is accessible. And Wes has just mentioned that. So maybe you could talk a bit more about that, Wes. What does accessibility actually mean?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of accessibility for us, it's not just about the standard. It's making sure that, I mean, a lot of people bounce around the phrase mobile first when you think of applications e-learning. We're accessibility first. So we build it from the point of view where it will work for everyone. And we're always recommending, I mean, you're always going to get those interactions that aren't very nice for people that might have a visual impairment, so they're not that easy to use. But we've tried in every case to make sure that there is at least something where that person isn't left out and can't access that content and interact with that content in a way that's meaningful to them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really good.
So does it work with screen readers?
Yeah. So all the popular ones are JAWS, NVDA, Chromevox. So yeah, we make sure that it's working with those, and we're always improving as well. So to make sure. So with what a lot of what we see a lot of web applications will do is often just work with JAWS because it's the most popular, but it's also the most expensive. So we went for the tools that were free first, and then got it to work in JAWS and go from there. I mean, really, they should all work the same because it's one specification, but it's always interpreted in different ways.
Yep.
I mean, I actually think visual, a lot of people, as we use computers more and more, unfortunately, people who have visual impairment are potentially also those that are getting left behind, because if they're not able to use a screen reader, or even they have to talk about it at work, which they maybe don't want to do, but what you're saying with the tools that you've developed, that people can just use them.
Exactly, and we try. Technology won't solve all the problems, and a lot of this has to come from content. And one of the examples with accessibility that I find is, you can have the best tool there, but if you're still doing a smiley face emojis using, semicolon hyphen open bracket parentheses, you're just going to get a screen reader that says semicolon hyphen open bracket
That's
parentheses.
right.
So you're still going to get that. It doesn't matter what the technology does at that point.
Yep, that's funny. No, in fact, and to you and kudos to your team. When we played a little bit with Evolve, I made a couple of comments to you about colors, contrast in colors, and Wes immediately addressed those issues. So these are, it's a good thing. He's putting his money where his mouth is, which is something we actually accept. And I'm one of those slightly visually impaired. I don't need screen readers, but I definitely have visual impairment in terms of contrast. I really have trouble with contrast, but and there's a lot of software out there that you just can't even read. Go look at something like Articulate. I'll mention them because they're atrocious when it comes to contrast. 3% gray contrast on white. That's really hard to read, even for people who are very well sighted. It's tough on the eyes, and things like that can always be avoided, but. When we were at the show, we were watching some of the things you were doing, and the software looks great. It's actually looking very accessible and very easy to use, which is always appreciated. So thank you for making those, tweaks, and they were tweaks more than anything else.
So tell me, Wes, within Evolve, what components do you have? The reason I ask is because of the eLearning club that is being run in Hastings, by Mohammed Daniel, and he's now got 11 and 12-year-old girls discussing the components in Evolve. So what components do you have?
Oh, so components is a bit of an evolved word. So people might view them as interactions, the things that the tool can do within a page. I guess we've got a whole mixture really. So we've got 36 last time I counted, but each one does different things. So you have one component or an interaction could just be text on a page, or it could just be text, and then you've got things like branching and game and simulation. So this is recorded applications where you can actually click through and interact with the page. So we've got anything like that, and you can change the behavior of them. So while you might say I've got 36, it might almost feel like there's 72 there, and we have to acknowledge that we're not going to be able to match our competitors in the space. So that's why we built things so where you can reuse interactions you've done with Storyline or Captivate by embedding them into Evolve content. So we actually allow that so that you can make the best of content you've previously produced if you want to reuse it in Evolve.
You've blinded me with science, Wes. Can you give me an example of the type of interactions that you've got?
Well, actually, would you like to share your screen and demo some of it?
I can do, yes.
That sounds great.
Let me just do that. Okay.
And I have played with Evolve, and their platform is very, very quick. And I'm not sure if you're hosting locally or in the States or in multiple locations, but it's fast.
Oh, yeah. So the way that we do it is we will always the host closest to you. So we use AWS, so Amazon Web Services, to host all of our instances of Evolve. So we don't do multi-tenant. each company gets their own Evolve with their own users, and the data's separate from everywhere else. But if you're in California and you say, I'm in California, we detect you are, we'll spin you up an instance of Evolve closest to you there.
Interesting.
So same as if you're in Germany or in Australia, we do the same there.
All right. Yeah, it's fast.
Right, so in this case, I've actually got it local on my Mac, but I'll just show you here anyway. So this is the dashboard where you get started. And to answer Leslie's question, I've got an example here of a page that's been built. And this is a really simple bit of content. And I've got lots of things like extensions here that will show where you're scrolling and how far down the page you are. So that moves as I scroll. We've got lots of questions here. So lots of different drop-down options. The real basic stuff right from the similar sort of thing where you like the multiple choice, the classic multiple choice, I like to call it. And
I want to be clear.
So you've got all of that, and I'm going to do that as well. So you can see you got that wrong there, Leslie. But yeah, so you get course assessments and everything else. But so that's like the real simple stuff. That's the kind of bread and butter you'd expect any authoring tool to do. The other stuff we've got is like game components, so like quizzes and that sort of thing, but interactive, so you can play other players. So let's play this multiplayer one. So I'm just going to select Joe, for example, and it's welcome to the Evolve pub quiz, and you can do that sort of thing. And there's rounds. Again, it's all mobile responsive. You've got things like timers as well. So there's the clock, so the fastest snake in the world, Black Mamba, and then it will kind of move you, instead of having to click next, it kind of moves you forward. You got no true or false ones. So it's really like you're playing like a game, like an app, for example. So I can
outrunning a Black Mamba is not easy. And they're mean.
And you can take hints or show the answer, and it will complete the question for you without me having to do things. You can stop the clock. You can hint. So there's kind of nice things you can do there, sort from smallest to largest. So you've got those sorts of things. But really, there's a whole mixture of different components, right from the ones that are immersive and take over your screen, like this one, right down to the basic stuff as well. One example I can show you is, so if we go to more branded types of content, I've got one of my client examples here, so I'll just move this out of the way. So we go right on brand as well, and we don't build that for you. So we're not building any themes. The idea of Evolve, you build it yourself. So if we look at the Snapchat course, for example, you've got it completely on brand. Mobile ready and working there. And if we look into something like one of our courses here, so if I go into one of these, you can see you can theme it up and match your brand identical to your website. So that's the whole idea here. You don't have to pay $3,000 to match your brand every learning course you do, or for your brand specifically. You can go in and do it yourself and match all your colors and everything else. And even upload your own fonts.
One of the things that was absolutely brilliant, Rick, was Wes and I went to a school in South London, and we were showing these young people, 14, 15-year-old students, we were telling them about, the e-learning industry, and they all thought they'd never really heard of e-learning. They knew about YouTube. They knew about online. They all thought you needed a degree in IT to be able to create learning. And then Wes said to them, right, okay, now we're going to create a course. What course are we going to create? And the children themselves, the young people, said, we're going to teach your granny how to use Snapchat. Have we lost Wes?
No, he's right there.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
Did you like that one, Wes? How to teach your granny how to use Snapchat?
Yeah. So no, we went through it, and it was just kind of showing the example there was that anyone could build a course, and that's what we set out to do when we first brought Appitierre and Evolve to the market. It was the idea that anyone could afford this product and tool. Anyone could use it. You wouldn't need any technical skills if you wanted to match your brand. And we expected, smaller companies, those companies with smaller budgets to come in and never really done any e-learning before, that couldn't typically do it with other tools. But what we got was people that and corporates that were, looking for something different from the tool that they've got. And the price point of Evolve is extremely affordable, so it's one of the lowest in the market. So people often find they can use their existing tools and use Evolve and Bloom as well.
And to give them another plug, the other thing that they do in support of Learn Appeal is anybody who is creating content for Learn Appeal, Appitierre, Wes and Daryl, give them access to Evolve free of charge. That's part of their CSR. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but in Bloom, in your learning management system, what I've been really impressed with is also the analytics that go around it. Because one of the teachers in the school said, if we're going to put this and do this with our kids in the school, and it's going to be on a capsule, and they say they're doing their homework, how do I know? And I said, you'll be able to look at the analytics that are in there and tell them when they were on and down to the second, how long they were on for, and exactly what they did. So no more little porcupines.
Porcupines, huh?
Porcupines, yeah, little lies, porcupines.
Ah, okay.
You maybe don't have that saying in the States, but in the UK, that is actually quite common.
Yep.
Because that's what people do, and that applies whether you're in a school or you're in a company. You can say, yes, I've been on, I've looked at all the compliance training, I've done it, blah, 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 blah. But the analytics in Bloom actually give you all of the detail. Over to you, Wes.
Yes. So I was going to say, in terms of that, I guess it really depends what you're looking for, because we've gone into companies and organisations before with that pitch that we have all the information you'd ever need, and you still get some companies that will say, well, I don't need that, I just need to know if they have completed it. So it's one of those where if you're really interested in, and maybe it's so where it works really well, and this is also, it's very similar to XAPI in that way, that because XAPI did exactly the same thing. I think they went in with the pitch, you'll have everything, and then you think, well, if you're only interested in compliance, then you're only interested in if they have completed it necessarily. But you go into sales collateral or product training, you do want to know that they fully understood it, and you do want to make sure that they've watched every video, and you do want to know if anyone's dropped out. So you've got that kind of completion from a point of view of assessing people, but then you've also got from an instructional designer point of view. So if 95% of people don't attempt the question, is the question too hard or does it not make sense? So from that point of view, those analytics can be useful, but you're always going to get that more wider market that uses compliance that just won't find that information useful or use it.
But here's the error in most companies that do that. When they just want check off training, they're just checking off that people did what they were supposed to do. That does not protect them in a court of law at all.
No, it doesn't.
And they think they are, and we've told many companies this. No, you're not protected. It doesn't even come close to protecting you, because unless you remediate the people who don't pass it, and of course they're not keeping pass fail, they're just keeping completed incompleted, and that doesn't protect you, because you have to remediate if there is a problem. Let's say sexual harassment course, then you have people sexually harassing others, they went through the training, they never remediated, they're still liable. And that's why it's, I think from our part, your part, everybody's part, we have to train people to understand that it's not just a checkoff. If you don't do certain things, you're not in compliance. You're not in legal compliance. And then the eyes open up wide and they get panicky. But it's a truism that most people just don't pay attention to. So it's good you have the information, because even though they think they don't need it, they probably do.
Yeah,
and the other thing that Appitierre do, I'm sorry, Wes, I'm preempting you all the time here, is they have got fantastic videos, Rick, every time
Yes.
they introduce a new element to either Bloom or Evolve, they put up videos that explain how to do it. So it's almost like Evolve's got its own YouTube in it, if that makes sense.
Right, it does. And when we were looking at it, Wes has a very nice voice, and he does a lot of those videos, and they're actually very informative. They go through what the product does. They talk about how sometimes things interact with others, as well as how each individual tool or component work. And so those are very helpful, especially when you're first looking at something or starting out. So, yep, those are good features.
So what made you decide to do that then, Wes?
Well, yeah, I think it's that's the other thing that, and I saw someone ranting about it on LinkedIn about I can't remember who it was, but it was a fairly high up industry figure talking about companies that will create animated videos to show their what their company does, like explainer videos, and that can be useful. But we've always found having a trial that people can quickly get hold of without having to enter too many personal details or a credit card, and they can just try your software is really important. And the other thing is lots and lots of videos that show your product, and we are up there in terms of the product company who have the most videos on our product, and a YouTube channel with 200 plus videos, and they're small 2 to 3 minute videos explaining how to use that part of the software. So they're not only on the channel, they're also embedded in the software. And we've also got our Evolve Academy written in our LMS so it's all Evolve content and courses on how to use it, because some people don't really want to watch videos. It might not be their format that they prefer, and especially it might not be appropriate to watch those videos if they're on a train or they're in a commute. They don't have a headset. They might just want to look at how it works. And so we've got written documentation as well as videos as well. So we try, and we've also got an online community now, which is quite interactive, where users are helping each other, and we've also got support with decent enough SLAs, so you're getting a response to your ticket, and even a support portal where you can log in and see all of your tickets that you've logged and any responses on them.
I mean, obviously, I'm a big fan, but because I've also seen the way that both Bloom and Evolve have grown over the last 4 years, and I really think that what you've done with the product is fantastic. So what made you get into it in the first place, Wes?
I think it's interesting you ask that, Leslie, because I fell into it because I was working in the staffing sector, and I didn't feel like I was really making a difference. So although I was, and there were some differences there. It wasn't right. We were working very much for shareholders and the wider community, and we were building software for the staffing sector, and that's fine, and I've got no issue with that, and other people doing it. But I thought I need to leave a mark here somewhere. I need to feel like I'm actually accomplishing something. So Learn Appeal is something that we feel we're actually giving back. So rather than just donating some money at the end of it and throwing it at a charity, we feel like we're actually part of something. So that was the core of why we started. And in terms of how I got into it, I've known my co-founder now for the better part of 14 years. So
wow,
I could always see him going through. He started as a Flash developer, then went to web developer, and he was brought on to sort of work out how do we get rid of Flash, how do we now go to HTML5. So you might be familiar with the Adapt framework. So Daryl, my co-founder, was one of the founding developers on the Adapt framework for Kineo. So, but he kind of said, look, I've got a few ideas. I'd like someone as mad as me to start a business with, and that's where we kind of thought we could do this together. So I'd had enough of the corporate life and wanted to go and try and make a difference on something.
That's great. Hey Wes, have you considered that 2020 will be a very big year for you?
Yes.
And
yes.
you know why? One of the reasons.
Well, it's Flash, isn't it?
Flash goes away in 2020 totally. End of cycle, no more support, you're done. Do you know how many people are going to be converting courses at that point?
Yeah.
And you're perfectly geared for that at this point. So that'll be very good.
It's interesting you say that, because even in learning I didn't see as many this year. I think I only saw one this year. But at Learning Technologies, there's such a broad range of different providers and things available. But I did still see someone offering courses that were in Flash, and I kind of felt a bit bad for them. In that you need to, as a provider providing this to people, they do need to jump ahead.
Yep. But I think it's going to be a good year for a lot of the vendors who can get in there and just do a lot of conversions. There's going to be a big need for conversions. A lot of people wait to the very, very last moment, and then they go, my stuff doesn't work, or nobody's supporting it. As it is, a lot of companies aren't supporting Flash anymore, period. So they've already run into some of those problems, but it's going to get worse. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that. But like you said, getting around the Flash issues is a big issue. I liked Flash when it was out. We developed in Flash, and in a way, it was sort of stupid that Apple and Adobe got into this ridiculous fight over something that really was the Apple having a very slow phone, not Flash being that slow. It was the iPhone that was slow, but it got spun around marketing wise, and you wind up getting a Flash being slow, which had its issues sometimes, but for the most part wasn't that slow. So it's just interesting how this industry evolves and changes, and we will see what happens. But no, I think you'll have a very good 2020. You'll probably have a great 2019, but 2020 might be big. So
going on from that, Wes, because we've only got a few minutes left, what's next for Appitierre?
So actually, next for us is to come into the US market more, because we seem to have picked up. We're at DevLearn, which was amazing, and it was great to see. It's such a different market to the UK in the sense of there's way more focus on instructional design out in the US than there is in the UK, and they probably have the Flash problem more in the US than they do in the UK. I think the UK have tried to get ahead of that curve, and I don't know many people doing it, but I still see it a lot in the US. So yeah, it's really bringing Evolve to the US, showing people what they can create, so we're at Learning Solutions towards the end of March. We're really looking forward to being there. So yeah, it's really next is going forward there, and we've got a whole roadmap of features in Evolve. So we've tackled translations recently, so we've got clients converting Evolve courses into 30 different languages, right to left as well. So it's doing more in that area, and more APIs and more integrations into other LMSs.
That's great.
Interesting times. And it's obviously, the organisers closest still of Learning Technologies are now heavily, Mark and Ian are now heavily involved in DevLearn Learning Solutions, and I know, they respect what you have done, what you have delivered, and hopefully you'll also do well in the US as well as you're doing in the UK.
Yeah,
I certainly hope so.
It's a big market here, so you probably will. And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way? Is it through through the website?
Yeah. I mean, you can get me on Wes Atkinson UK, so that's WES Atkinson UK on Twitter, or you can get me on evolveauthoring.com, and just any of the contact us pages through there. Some of the better places to get hold of me.
Okay, and we will have that on the show notes below, so please get a hold of them, and we'll have all that info there for you. So, well, Wes, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on and seeing you again. We didn't have too much of a chance to talk at Learning Tech because no one had a lot of chance to talk. Everybody was busy. So hopefully we'll get to talk another time.
Rick, the other thing you have to understand is not only does Wes give his time to Learn Appeal, Wes is also on the board of directors of another community interest organisation called the eLearning Network. So Wes stood for that and was elected, and that's also effectively, it's not quite a charity, but it's the same kind of thing to help people in our industry. So Wes also does that. So, as well as running his own stand and going backwards and forwards to the ELN, to the e-learning network, and then popping over to Learn Appeal, he was a very busy bee, a very busy boy.
You get about 2 hours sleep a night, right? About 2 or 3?
Yeah, roughly. That's all I need.
And he's got a little daughter as well.
That's okay. You just went down to 1 hour a night. That sounds great, Wes. We really We really appreciate you coming on to the show today and sharing your product and what your company does. And we wish you continued luck and success with everything you do. I know Leslie always talks about you and just respects you guys greatly, and I think we all do. So, Wes, we'll see you next time on the show. We'll see you in person at one of the shows as well. So, look forward to seeing you soon again.
DevLearn or Learning Solutions, Rick. You'll be there.
Yep.
I'll be there at DevLearn, not Learning Solutions, but DevLearn for sure this year.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
And
take care. Bye.
And we will see you next week on the show. Have a good one, everyone. Bye-bye. And we are.
Am I allowed my glass of wine?